Hopefully I brought a little smile to everyone's face. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Welcome to the weekly meeting of the Rotary Club of Barrie. Things go better when you are here. A special welcome to our visiting Rotarians and guests. Hope you can join us anytime. Please stand as we start our meeting with a warm welcome, O Canada, and a toast to the Queen. For good food, for good friends, and for the opportunity to provide service above self through Rotary, we are thankful.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true page of love, and all of us come in. With glowing hearts we see the rest, the true north, strong and free. On far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Beautiful. Toast to the Queen. And for introductions of our visiting Rotarians and guests, Betty Ann.
Okay, President Deb and fellow Rotarians, we are pleased to have Joseph Wu and Paul Lauer visiting with us. Also from the district, we have Barb Begley and Steve Medley, and we're glad, and that's the only ones I have seen so far. So welcome to our Rotary Club. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome all. Things really do go better when you're here. So love it when you come, and please come back again. We have Beacon editor this week is our past president, Peter Dean. Thank you very much. And last week's Beacon was a team effort. Bill Forrester, Scott Elliott, Mallory Steele. So lots of people contributing. Thank you so much for making that Beacon happen. We're going to jump right into a little history. Peter Dean is popular today. So Peter, do you want to take it away?
Yes, President Deb. My first question is, how come nobody volunteered to help me with the Beacon? I won't take it personally. I thought, with your permission, or without, I'll cover the chicken barbecue, which was our major fundraising event for over 45 years. It was started in 1953. It was part of the birthday celebration for the city of Barrie. Barrie was 100 years old that year. And it was on Civic Holiday weekend that we celebrated the first chicken barbecue. Bob Williams was the idea behind the chicken barbecue. He originated it. And Jim Gilmore, past president Jim Gilmore, provided the chicken because he was the owner of Skyline Farms. First year, we sold 500 dinners at $1.50 a piece. It became, as I mentioned, one of our greatest fundraisers ever. That and the radio auction were the two mainstays of our club. In 1965, we were almost rained out, and Bill Clark provided us, Barrie Tent and Awning provided us with coverage for our fire pit. The fire pit was 70 feet long, about 4 feet wide, full of flaming charcoal. We learned that year that we couldn't rely on good weather to provide food. So the following year, we constructed the Pavilion at St. Vincent Park. That was a club effort. Everybody pitched in. It went very well. And the only problem was we built it on a spring. In the following winter, the concrete cracked, so we had to jack it up and replace the concrete. Now, the pavilion was eventually dedicated to the memory of past district governor, past president Dooley Greer. And it helped draw attention to St. Vincent Park. Towards the end of our 45 years, we were producing 3,500 chicken dinners a day. It was a major effort. Families, friends attended. Bill Clark, as I mentioned, provided the covering for the pit. And the team captains were Terry Porter, past president, was one of the major chefs. And past president, past District Governor Ernie Irvin was a chef as well. And if you were lucky, you drew the upwind portion of the fire pit. We sprayed the chicken with peanut oil and water. And if you got downwind, it was a horrible day. The families and friends of Rotarians provided help. Porter family and their friends from Toronto, the Dean family, kids. One of the interesting things is one of the major volunteers in those days was Jim Blow. Jim was an employee of Ken Firth's at Woolworths, and Ken co-opted Jim to help us every year. So he did such a wonderful job of volunteering. He was eventually proposed as an honorary member of our club, and the rest is history. One year in particular, we got our chicken in later years from Mount Forest. And Ken Peck took the refrigerated truck to Mount Forest, pick up the chicken, loaded the chicken, got halfway back, and the truck broke down. Fortunately, he got it going, the chicken arrived, and it worked out very well. The logistics of cooking 3,500 half chickens and keeping them warm was a major problem. And past President Jack Forster provided warming ovens for us, which lasted for years. We have never managed to replace a project that created so much fellowship and fun with Rotarians. So that's a brief summary of the chicken bar. Oh, past President Greg McWatt was his first major item or project where he shared the item for the full year. So Greg did very well. He probably still hasn't forgotten. Is he still on? Is he online? Maybe he'd like to comment. Guess he isn't.
Yes, he isn't.
Anyway, so much for the chicken barbecue.
That's awesome. I just love these history lessons, and it's really nice, especially since we're not meeting in person, to have a little of our history shared. So thanks so much, Peter. I really appreciate stepping up and helping with sharing some of our good stuff from the past.
You're welcome.
So we'll jump into birthdays and anniversaries. We've got quite a few. Dave Tish, April 29th. Jacqueline Tuckey, May 1st. Paul Markle, May 2nd. Eric Harkonnen, May 4th. And Catherine Elphick, May 5th. Happy birthday all. We have some anniversaries. Brad Dibble and Catherine Elphick, 21 years or 22 years, May 1st. And Joan and Jack Gardner will be 63 years on May 3rd. Date joined Rotary, we've got two. John O'Brien at 12 years and Larry Pomfret at 6 years. And there we go.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear fellow. Happy birthday to you.
I love these. Now, do you know how special it would have been, Catherine, had your son sent in the happy birthday on his piano? Just a little plug there in case you want to play that section for him as a friendly reminder that we're still waiting for it. So we're going to jump into some announcements. Jeff, are we all set up with Al's video?
Hello, President Deb and fellow Rotarians. I'm just going to give you a short little demo of how the new Rotary Club of Barrie Marketplace works and how you might use it to purchase something like the ice fishing tournament ticket. So as you can see, this is our home page, and you can click on the ice fishing tournament where it shows the link, and it'll take you to the marketplace. So this is the marketplace interface for this particular event, which is the Rotary Ice Fishing Tournament. You can see all the different prizes that Wayne and Gary have been working hard on acquiring for the event. And all of these you can click on and get a little bit more information. So if I click on something like John McNabb's donation here of $1,000, you can scroll down and read all about it. If you need to improve your wardrobe, you certainly want to get your ice fishing ticket so that you'll hopefully win this. I'll scroll down and just look at some of the other prizes that are to be won. Here's some of our really big ticket items. If we click on Jeff Walter Jewelry's $2,500 gift certificate, and again you can read about what the prize is all about, and then we can go back and lots of different things. I won't go through them all, but you can see all the many different prizes. So this is the marketplace interface, and we'll be using this for other events as well, such as the fun run or anything that we want to be able to sell. So if you want to buy a ticket to the ice fishing tournament, you click on get your raffle ticket, and it's going to take you to the cart page where you basically see the price of it, $30, and you can either, it talks about the draw 1 p.m. May 13th. You can click add to cart, and then if you have any questions, you click chat with the Rotary Club, and that'll actually send me a Facebook message that I can reply to. But otherwise, click add to cart. Now you can view cart. You can see what you're purchasing here. Go to checkout. My internet's a little slow, but bear with me. So I have quantity 1. You can buy as many tickets, or maybe there's a limit. Ask Wayne about that. But you can see on the right-hand side your total. You can click checkout, and now you can either type in your information if you're a returning customer, or you click create account, and that will take you to a page that you'll be used to if you've purchased anything online, where you're filling out your billing information and your name and all the other details in order to make the purchase. Once you've got all that filled out, you can scroll down, and if you want to receive mail from the club, click this I'd like to be added to your email group, and you'll get updates on what's happening with the marketplace. And so you've got all that figured out. You just go over and click continue. Save your password if you like. And this is going to take you to a PayPal page where you can complete the transaction. So you have 2 options here. If you're already used to using PayPal, you can just use the balance you have. In my case, I do have a balance, so that's what I'm going to do. But you can also see, you can click Visa and enter your Visa details. So I'm going to use my balance, click Pay Now. And just like that, you've completed the purchase of a ticket. And so here's your kind of receipt page. You can go click to return to merchant, and then you're going to want to check your email because that's going to have the details for the ticket you've actually purchased. So this is the email that the automated email I receive, and you can see the details of your purchase. Now you scroll down, and this is going to tell me my ticket number. In my case, I have the winning ticket number, number 15. But if you want to have a chance at some other prizes, certainly get your ticket as well. And that's it. That's a kind of an overview of how the Barrie Rotary Club marketplace all works. And big thanks to everyone who's worked hard in putting this together, especially David Sopuch is behind a lot of this. So yeah, that's it.
Wow, incredible. Lot of work gone into that. Wayne, do you want to take it from here?
Thank you, President Deb. Al, phenomenal video. And everybody can see how easy it is to buy a ticket. But the key thing is you still got to go on, you still got to buy the ticket. And we are capped at 1,000. So right now, when Al did this video, that was last weekend, and the ticket sales are going along pretty good. Now, when you go onto the website now, we are updating some of the prizes. It's still the same amount, the 18,500 total, but we're just adding, instead of you seeing a restaurant to be determined or local restaurant, it now will have the actual restaurant, like the farmhouse is on there and things like that. So now, I do still want to thank Bell. Without their support, sergeants, they stepped right up. Rock 95, Cool FM, you'll be hearing the ads quite often. And now even the RVH now is now put our website, or they've put a landing page on their site on Foundation, and it shows everything about what we're doing to help RVH, and you can also buy tickets there. So if everybody that hasn't bought one, get one quick, because they will go. There's only 1,000. I don't sure what the odds work out to, but I know based on licensing, we were allowed to sell 3,000 tickets. So these are phenomenal odds. Anyways, thank you, President Deb. Thank you, fellow Rotarians. Buy your tickets.
Great, thank you. And again, thank you everyone working on that ice fishing tournament and getting the news out. It is a big job and you guys are just stepping it up and doing incredible. So thank you so much. Catherine, you have some good news.
I do. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, President Deb, guests, and fellow Rotarians. Today, I'd like to give you an update on the Rotary Gift Card Initiative that our Community Service Committee has been working on. Oh, thank you for putting that up. Today, I'm stepping in for Chris because he's up to his elbows in tax returns and he was a little busy. So by now, you know about our gift card initiative, which gives $50 grocery cards to individuals who have been under financial strain from the pandemic. Our hardworking committee has been targeting restaurant or food service workers, personal care workers, and those in the travel industry. So far, our committee has raised, this is pretty great, has raised $15,000 for this initiative, and donations are still coming in. We have also added some new sectors to our eligible recipient list, which I will get to in a second. With respect to numbers, here's where we are at. Let's see. Oh, so again, we're working with the 15,000, and so far we have just distributed a total of 85 cards. And so far the response has been fantastic from these individuals. Thanks to additional funds raised, we have selected 120 new recipients to receive cards. And those cards should be distributed hopefully very soon this week or maybe by early next week. And there's more. At present, we still have about 185 cards left to find homes. But honestly, it's not hard to find homes for these cards. Our team has been working hard to cover the bases, and we have added some new sectors to give cards to. They include construction, obviously people who are not working in construction, that have been shut down, fitness and recreation, the arts, hotels, catering, childcare, and retail. So if you'd still like to donate to this great initiative, I will put the Canada Helps link on the chat. Or if you know someone that could use one of these gift cards, you can send an email, and I'll put this in the chat too, but it's to rbchelps@gmail.com, and that email goes directly to Bernie, who's been managing the emails, and yeah, that's about it. So if anyone has any questions or not, that's all good.
Great. Thanks so much, Catherine. Kara.
President Deb, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Fellow Rotarians, I can't believe it, but we're just over 3 weeks away till the fun run. So you're going to hear from me or somebody on the team every week. So we are 24 days away from the fun run when registration when it kicks off. Registration is now officially open. Ian and his team have done an amazing job putting together this website, literally starting from scratch again. So a special thank you goes out to him for all of the hard work. It takes a lot of time, and he's been doing this now for months. So thank you so much, Ian. I've got a couple of things that I really want to tell you about the new things that are happening with the fun run. First of all, I want to show you the video of how to register. And it's a pretty simple process.
Hello, President Deb and fellow Rotarians. I'm going to give you a very quick overview of the 2021 Rotary Fun Run website. If you go to berryfunrun.com, then you'll end up here. We have two different ways that you can register right now. You can register as an individual or a corporate team. I'm going to go through the register as an individual process, and we have some great new features on the site this year. So when you register as an individual, you go through a 4-step process. First, you need to create an account. So you need your name, your phone number, your email address, and password. And then you click next step. On the next step, this is where we define what the registration fee is. So this year, we allow people, like last year, to choose the own amount to donate as a registration fee. So we have a suggested $40. People can choose $20, $60, or they can set their own fee, where they can specify if they want to maybe donate $75 or $100 or maybe $25. So once they specify how much they want to donate, they can also add $10 to their fee if they want to have a t-shirt. If they don't want a t-shirt, that's fine. But if they want a t-shirt and they can choose between 1 and 2, let's say just 1, and then pick the size that they want. And then you can see that they now owe $110, their donation amount plus the $10 for the t-shirt. So then they can pay through PayPal. And this is just a test account, which is fine. So I'm going to pay for my registration fee. And then the final step, you get a thank you message. But the fun thing this year is that people can specify a profile, maybe upload a photo, and define a fundraising goal. I'm going to say, I want to try to raise $500, and they will get their own unique URL. So this is a link. I'm going to copy the link here that people can post on Facebook or send it out on Instagram. So with this new feature, that link can be sent to people, and when they click on it, they'll visit this sponsorship page where they can see my picture, what my profile is, what my fundraising goal is, and then individuals can make a donation towards my goal of $500, and their donation will show up on the right-hand side over here. And we can issue tax receipts from here as well. They can make their donation anonymous or not. So it's a great way to try to get our registrants to go and solicit more funds to support the Rotary Fun Run. And then the other way of registering is via a corporate team. So we have a process here where an individual can sign up as a team, as a company. They can then choose the amount that the company wants to pay per team member. The company will get invoiced the amount per team member, and then the individuals that are added to the team will get an email invite from the Fun Run website inviting them to register, log on, and participate in the Fun Run. So we've got lots of new features coming back to this site again this year, but I hope you'll come and check it out. You can either, again, register as an individual or as a corporate team, adding more features, but check it out and share it with your friends and family. Thank you.
What do you think, President Deb?
That was incredible. I'm just loving these videos. And I'm hoping we're going to be able to play them again and make sure.
Oh, yeah. We will for sure. So that new feature that Ian just described to us, that's brand new for the Fun Run. It's never been done before because it's never been virtual before, but I think it's a wonderful ability, and it's super simple to set up. You just share the link to, you can email it to people, you can put it onto your social media, your Facebook, and then it allows your friends and family to contribute if they want to. And you know what? Every little bit counts right now. Just one more thing, if we have enough time, there'll also be some we're trying to grow our social media platform to expand our reach on this. So we have gathered a few donation prizes. So if you have Instagram specifically, go to Instagram and follow Berry Fun Run. There'll be prizes like tag a friend prizes and giveaways from Sugar Bear Body Bar, Burger Royale, Ass Kicker Activewear, Domino's Pizza, Cafe of Life Chiropractic. And these are just incentives to grow our platform and expand our reach. So I know some of you have an Instagram account. Please go to at Berry Fun Run and follow it. Siva Creative is doing a good job of managing that and creating some content for us. But yeah, lots of good features, and we look forward to expanding our reach with this and doing well with the fun run this year. Thanks, President Deb.
Awesome work. You got just incredible. It is just, I'm speechless. It's just incredible between the ice fishing and the fun run. Incredible what you guys are doing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Darren.
Thanks, President Deb. Fellow Rotarians, I'm just here to provide an update on the Spring Tonic drive-through. As most of you know, we're in a shutdown, so we're in a holding pattern right now. Hopefully by the time we get to the end of this, around May 20th, we'll be able to select a new date. We do have to be careful though, because we have to be at least in a red zone in order to operate with the number of people that we're going to have there. So hang tight, and as we get closer, we'll hopefully have some new updates for you with dates and so forth. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren. And the pressure's on, eh? You followed up with the ice fishing and the fun run with the videos and all this tech stuff. I think the pressure's on for your group.
As long as I don't have to out-earn all these other groups, then I'm good.
Oh, it's yeah, you've got a few extra hurdles there. So we have a very special guest today. We have Assistant Governor General-elect Barb Begley. Sorry about that.
President Deb, thanks so much for having me. And I am the Assistant District Governor-elect, the same position that Steve Meadley holds at this time. And he's moving on, of course, to be the District Governor. And so I'm going to try to fill some very big shoes and get to know all the clubs a little more closely. Although it's nice to see so many friends on the screens. I just wanted to tell you just a little bit about me and introduce you to me and let you know that I'm going to do my best to fulfill the role that Steve has created. I was born and raised on a very large dairy farm in Vaughan, back when it was a township. My husband Warren and I have been residents in Innisfil for more than 40 years, and we watched our community grow and change. I've served as a community member on town council for 22 years, as well as a number of volunteer organizations. Currently, I'm a member of the board of both the Innisfil Public Library and the YMCA. I worked for the Royal Bank in Barrie in a variety of customer service roles, and then a compliance officer until I retired. I'm a proud charter member of the Rotary Club of Veniceville. We chartered in June 2010, and I joined the Provisional Club in 2009 in November. And I was president of that club for 2016-17. I really like working with like-minded people to come up with innovative and forward-thinking ideas to serve our diverse communities. So that's a little bit about me, and I'd be glad to answer any questions, or you can just accept me as the wonderful person I just told you I was.
Oh, we just had something in the chat too that says that you're also a great supporter of our Rotary auction. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. So I'm going to pop into your meetings from time to time, and I'm going to answer any questions that I can help you with regard to the district, or how to do, or who can I talk to, or those kind of questions. And hopefully, as I say, Steve's been a great example of what a district governor does. So our assistant district governor does. And so I'm going to try to do that.
Awesome. Well, we've really enjoyed getting to know Steve, and we see him often in our meetings. And we look forward to having you as many times and as often as you want to come. You've got the code, so just come on in.
Thank you very much.
Quick question. Any other announcements that I didn't know about? Not seeing any. Okay, SAA Eric.
Thanks, President Deb. I do have a couple of proposed victims. As Deb knows, we've had a little bit of a medical crisis this week with Lorraine's dad. He's in hospital, but he got through a surgery that we weren't so sure he would get through. So it's always possible that a surgeon's going to call me and I'll have to disappear. So with that caveat, hopefully that won't happen in the next 5 or 6 minutes, because I've got a couple of folks on my roster that have been in my list for a number of weeks now, but we haven't been able to be online at the same time. But I did notice a couple today. So I've got a few that I want to go through. Secretary Jeff, if you've got the current deck up, we'll go there in a second. I just did want to mention, just a little offhand aside, that Kara snuck in Cafe of Life there as a nice little advertisement when she was mentioning Fun Run. So I don't think there's any need to find there. It's a Cafe of Life supporter of Fun Run, but pretty nice, pretty slick slide it in there, Kara. Okay, so Jeff, why don't we pull up, let's see, let's start with that first one there. I believe it's a guy by the name of Marshall Green in my deck. And I got to make sure I've got it up. So this was a shot we took online a couple of weeks ago. Of course, this is Marshall's idyllic face when his grandkids are doing the anthem. So I just wanted to point out, is that a proud grandpa or what?
Very proud.
President Deb, certainly there can't be a fine for that.
I've got a soft spot for grandkids and stuff. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So just know that you were noticed. Okay, I think we've got one in there, a guy by the name of Jonathan Derrick as well, Jeff. Did you see that one? Now look at that. Here's a new ride. I was not notified of this by Jonathan in person, but did find this online. So John, do you want to tell us a little bit about this new-ish machine?
President Deb, SAA Eric, I assure you my intentions were really good. I am trying to do my part to stimulate the economy, put some cash back into the pockets of the hardworking folks at Mississauga Harley-Davidson. I'm also been influenced quite a bit by Greg McWatt and the Environmental Committee. My Jeep has a 5.7 liter V8 Hemi engine in it. This motorcycle is only 2 cylinders. So it's about a quarter of the size. So trying to do my part to keep the oceans blue and the grass green. It's also something that we can do from a fellowship perspective. So I learned recently that there's a motorcycle fellowship club, and I know there's a couple other riders in this in our club. So trying to do my part to keep fellowship going as well. So hopefully with all of those good intentions, the fine isn't too severe today.
Now, President Deb, I did note that that Jonathan mentioned online that his wife actually kind of found the bike online, and I note that his wife is also a life insurance advisor. So I just wondered whether she kind of cranked up the life insurance before she advised John of this opportunity. Any truth to that nasty rumor that I may have started?
She's a pretty smart lady, so smarter than me.
President Deb, what do you think? It's a 2-wheeled machine. It's 10 years old, coming to Jonathan, but it's it's still a hog. It's still a Harley.
It is, and he did throw under the bus, or I guess under the motorcycle, past President Craig. So that wasn't very nice. We tried to bribe with the fellowship, which we highlighted last week. So that definitely is a bribe. I'm kind of thinking a couple of things. One, I think a donation to, the cards that community services is putting towards. And I think he needs to do the fun run and, solicit some sponsorships and some money himself through that.
Sounds like
Sounds
a deal,
good.
President Deb.
All right, good deal. Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, we've got one there, Jeff, for Tanya Sari. This will be a bit of a surprise to Tanya. I found this a few weeks ago online, and we haven't had a chance to use it yet. I just thought this was a great Parenting 101 post that I found on Facebook. Tanya, do you want to give us the backstory? I love the face.
Oh, geez, you're right. This does come as a surprise. Well, it is what it says. My kids convinced me to take them to, I think it's McEwen's out in past Bradford Greenhouse to get ices. And my 16 going on 17-year-old son has the audacity to ask when I qualified for a handicap sticker. I feel like I was doing something nice for them, and I get like called out on because I got a good parking spot, but he thinks I should be eligible for handicap stickers soon. So I'm not so sure I'm going to be so accommodating the next time anybody asks to go for an icy. So I'm just saying.
Nice. Looked like very good parenting skills to me. I recall those teen days, and the fact that my kids actually started to respect us again after they turned 20. President Deb, what do you think? This is a pretty cool parenting story, but I also needed to get a ruling on Tanya's status as to whether she is off sponsor fine or whether she's standing alone on fines, or whether her sponsor is still responsible.
Yeah, that's close. That is close. Are you 6 months into the club now?
Not officially. I only got inducted, President Deb, in January. So I think that leaves, I think Doug had to leave the meeting, but I think that leaves him responsible for all of my fines. So maybe I should be committing more crimes, actually.
Always a good idea.
President Deb, I am her sponsor. It is under 6 months. She does have a red dot on her badge. So whatever you decide to assess, I'm happy to send it.
Awesome.
What do you like, President Deb?
I think I'm kind of liking the donation to the, let's go fun run this time. So
Good. Participation
in the fun run, and see if you can rally up some people to sponsor you.
Done and done.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Tanya. Okay, I got one last one. Chuck Bolt, I'm going to pick on you for this one because the actual subject is not in the room. Jeff, do you want to show us that picture of a CTV show? There we go. There we go. So this is a CTV article on the COVID Park project. Notice that it's, Chuck's not actually representing himself in terms of the committee. Sends off Ian to do the dirty work. Chuck, why don't you unmute and tell us why Ian's having to do your work for you?
He wanted to, President Deb. How are you, by the way? Like he wanted to do it, and I'm the best boss possibly because I let them take all the glory. And
nice.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
President Deb, what do you think? It's a pretty nice news story. Lots of press for Rotary in that one.
Absolutely, and certainly a great initiative. But I'm thinking, both what is it? To be incoming President Chuck and Ian. I think they need to support the ice fishing with purchasing a ticket.
Well, I already purchased a ticket. Do I have to purchase another one?
Yeah.
Okay, another one. All right. Will do. Can I get Todd Tucky to buy it for me?
Yeah, you
Hey,
can try
Todd.
that.
Okay. Todd, I'm going to set you up there. You can buy me a ticket. I'll send you $30. How's that? You hear?
There's Todd. You got him.
Is he agreeing?
Yes, he did a thumbs up for that.
Okay, you could be very busy, Todd. You could be buying everybody's tickets.
All right, President Deb, that's all my victims today. We did, though, promise that we were going to have a quick breakout room to help people with their committee selections. I'm checking the time, so it might only be 6 or 7 minutes this time around. So what's going to happen now is what happened last week. I'm going to open a bunch of rooms. You'll see that they are listed by the name of the committee. I've also included, you might see at least a portion of the name of the director. So these are intended to be the incoming directors, but if the incoming director isn't online, there'll be somebody there that can chat with you. So I'm going to open all rooms, pick your room. There will also be a room for President incoming Jody, if you want to have a chat with him. And if you're already settled on your committee or for our speakers, feel free to stay in the main room, and President Deb will be hanging out there to continue hosting that room. Opening the rooms now. So go look for where you can join. You may have to scroll down on the right side of that box to find the committee names down below, and you'll see a little blue button that says join. Oh, look at you going. People leaving the room left, right, and center. All right, President Deb, I'll go off to mine. I'll let you continue holding the main room here.
Okay.
President Deb, I'm surprised there wasn't a bigger fine for Ian since the article from CTV listed him as environmental chair.
Well, Ian's not here, so definitely.
Well, maybe you should add fine to Chuck because he's not representing himself correctly to the media.
That is very true.
It said, I sent a screen cap to Eric of that environmental chair. Malcolm said, I went, I don't think so.
Well, I will give a little bit of a break because boy, they have been working very hard to move this along. So we won't be too mean to them. We want them out there promoting it, and however they can get the promotion, they can go for it. Okay, we've got a few people sticking around or not figuring out how to go into a breakout room.
President
I
Deb.
fall into that second category.
Okay, Todd, where do you want to go?
How about international, please?
Okie doke.
Or I'll stay
Can I
here.
go to special projects? Excuse me. President Deb, it's Arlette. Can I go to special projects?
You sure can.
Thank you.
It's Peter, environmental, please.
Hold on. Yeah, can I give us a chance?
I sent them. I got Arlette.
Jeff, would or President Deb, could I go to P&I? It's Rory.
Sure.
You're off, Rory.
Thank you.
President Deb, if it's okay, could we go to speakers? P&I?
Speakers, sure.
Can I go to the Dominican Republic?
You're next, Ian.
Jamaica? I don't know, anywhere.
That's international, isn't it?
Oh, yes. No, I don't want to go. I already was there last week.
I don't see club service on incoming here. So do you want to send me to club service then? I'll see if I can help there. Betty Ann.
Will do.
There. I'm loving these breakout rooms.
Having fun.
Yeah, I find they really help to kind of break up the meeting and gives people a chance to chit chat instead of just kind of listening to us.
Be interesting to see the background workings of how a meeting goes on with all the technology that's been employed in the last few years. Like it looks pretty slick, but that's of course Dave and Jeff and a bunch of people, and even for yourself, President Deb, just coordinate all those things. A bunch of whiz bangs out there. It's sort of cool.
Yeah, well, we've been getting lots of practice, you know, week over week.
It flows nicely. Good meetings.
Now, Betty Ann, you said you wanted to go off to club service, right?
I did, but there was nobody there. Last week, nobody came either, so no point in me sitting there alone.
Okay, we'll come back and be here. So. Oh, now Scott, where is your background from?
That's Telluride. So we're up around 14,000 feet there, and we're on a high mountain motorcycling.
That looks like it's a few years old.
Well, yeah, I'm not as gray then, so it's a few years back, but I got some gray hairs because Junior on my right there, or left, I guess it is, decided following my brother that we're going down about a 12-foot wide mountain road against a rock face and a 2,000-foot drop, no guardrails, anything like that. And they decide that when they come around almost a 90-degree turn, they would jump about 30 feet across from the road by hitting a rock, jumping up into the air, going across 2,000 feet down drop straight, and land on 12 feet of rock and carry on. I told them not to do that, but they did that.
I couldn't do it. I just
12,000 foot drop, or a 2,000 foot drop. Ugh.
Yeah, just hearing about it makes my stomach drop.
Even if they hit the rock face after they landed on this 12-foot wide road, which was rock, they could have bounced off and gone off because there's no guardrails. It's just straight rock.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're a bit of a risky kind of guy with your skiing. Like, isn't that something equivalent to like what you did?
Oh, I do some things.
Well, I wouldn't do it on a motorcycle, just like probably they wouldn't do it on skis, I guess. Hey, it's what you're used to. Snow is softer than rocks, so.
I've got enough steel in me to pay for some of the impacts, so.
I don't know.
So the tough thing is these days, there's so many of these videos online of people doing daredevil tricks that I think it eggs people on to think that they can do these crazy tricks. You know what I mean? Like it's rare that it works well, or you really have to be skilled at it in order to be safe and in control. Like, or you're super lucky.
Yeah.
If they had filmed me, they would have locked their kids in the house.
Well, I sometimes wonder too if they just, cut and paste into this, you don't actually see it as real. Like maybe they kind of put a fake background or something, or they do a green screen and make it bigger than what it really is. So
angles.
I'm a little skeptical on some of the stuff that's on there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So especially seeing what, Dave can do with backgrounds and how real it can get. So that just makes me really skeptical when I watch those things.
Well, you don't think I'm on the Enterprise or in the TARDIS? Or in Tony Stark's workshop right now?
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, looks like everybody's coming back. Okay. They're working it through. Give them another minute or two. 16 seconds, I guess. I find these breakout rooms for the committees too, especially for the newer members. It's kind of nice to find out or ask a question about what's being done in different committees. Thing I've learned, like certainly our club is unique to having 10 different committees. Many clubs have groups that take on different projects and they end up kind of being that's the committee, not necessarily a completely structured, formalized committee set that we have. So it's how it all changes and evolves, and every club's just that little bit different. Jeff, are we all back?
Yeah, I think we're all back, President Deb. We'll just start doing some muting of folks, or people can mute themselves, and I'll turn it back over to you for program. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks so much. I know it's been a full time, so we'll jump right into our speaker. And Scott, would you like to do the introductions, please? Scott, you're on mute.
Thank you, President Deb. Joseph and Paul are from the Royal Bank, and Joseph is one of the fellows that's basically on a speaking tour with the Royal Bank. There's about 5 fellows or people that go around Canada and speak to different issues on banking. So they're kind enough to come and speak to us about that. Joseph is on the Management Portfolio Advisory Group. He's been with the Royal Bank since 2007. And he helps with the advisory on asset management, things like that. He covers a lot of different topics, and I'm going to go fairly quickly because I don't want to take up his time, but he focuses on multi-asset strategies. But I am interested also in the question and answers because I sort of like to get his opinion on cryptocurrencies, but he'll be available for question and answer after his talk. In any case, he graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce out of the University of Toronto in the Finance Department and is a CFA and charter holder. So without any more delay, Joseph, take it away. Thank you.
Okay, Joseph, can you hear us? We can't hear you if you're trying.
You may be on mute.
It's not showing mute on his profile here.
We could hear him earlier in the meeting.
He was, and it's and he's still showing up on our screen.
Sometimes.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Hello? Okay, perfect. All right, so let me just quickly share my screen. Hopefully you can all see it.
We can.
Perfect, great. So hello and good afternoon, everyone. So again, my name is Joseph Wu, and I'm responsible for multi-asset strategy at the Portfolio Advisory Group of RBC Management. So first of all, thanks for giving me some time to share some of our thoughts around the economy and markets with you today. What I've done with my presentation today is split it into 2 main sections. In the first half, I'll focus on the economic outlook and fundamentals. And in the second half, I'll share some considerations around long-term market cycles and how we think about strategic positioning in equities. And we'll, of course, have some time at the end of the presentation for questions. As we get through this deck, here are the 4 key points I think are the most important takeaways. First, visibility on the global economy is quite good over the next 12 months, and this continues to improve. And by extension, that means corporate profit trends are also likely to remain in the uptrend. Second, while recessions are always painful to get through, such as the one we went through last year, and they get a lot of media attention, a key point to remember here is that expansions last much longer. And I'll share some data on this later on in the presentation. Third, US recession risk is something we monitor very closely because sharp declines in equities are extremely rare outside of US recessions. And lastly, I'll share some long-term cycle data that I think help to demonstrate that while corrections in equity markets and volatility receive a lot of attention, they are very much normal, and ultimately equity markets are quite resilient in the long run. So starting today with the world economy, again, the outlook is fairly upbeat. Business activity, which is proxied here in the left chart by the global Composite PMI new orders survey, and this covers both the manufacturing and services sectors. It is regaining momentum after a slowdown over the winter months. And while the recession last year was certainly a very bad one, the right chart shows that the deeper the recession, the bigger the rebound. All major economies are going to bounce back very strongly from the recession last year. And frankly, the kind of GDP growth we're going to see this year is going to rank amongst some of the best we've seen in decades. And barring unexpected negative shocks, we expect strong follow through on the global economic recovery. And a lot of this is going to be driven by sustained government spending, the very easy monetary policy, as well as pent up consumer demand, all helping to drive a synchronized global economic upswing through at least the remainder of this year and well into next year as well. Now, for all of this stimulus support, however, goes without saying that getting COVID under control is still by far the most crucial wild card for fostering durable growth momentum. And even though there's been a lot of early bottlenecks in vaccination rollouts, we are still encouraged by the steady ramp up in inoculations. The left chart shows that we have now administered more than 1 billion COVID vaccine doses worldwide. Now, we recognize that this vaccine coverage will vary dramatically between countries, and Canada is unfortunately a laggard on this front. But the broadly improving pace of vaccine deployment still drives our belief that mass immunization in major economies remains attainable in the second half of this year. Now, even if the timeline to achieving this broad immunity on the right chart here gets pushed out a little bit, this increasing rate of vaccinations will still continue to limit the potential for negative pandemic surprises. And so that's still going to be a market positive development. Now, coming back to briefly highlight what we see as the durable pillars of the economic recovery, starting with fiscal and monetary stimulus. If we look at government spending, massive is really the only way to describe what governments are doing today and continue to inject into the world economy. And the left chart makes this abundantly clear that governments around the world have learned their lesson from the global financial crisis fiscal response. Back then, the government spending provided was much smaller. And more importantly, that stimulus support from governments was withdrawn prematurely because a lot of politicians shifted their focus to reducing budget deficits. This time around, however, governments have opened their spending taps in full. And just as importantly, they've signaled their commitment to keep spending until the economy shows concrete signs that it can stand on its own. And if we look in Canada and the US, for example, it's simply very difficult for the economy to suffer a downturn when the government's spending measures are adding up to 20 to 25% of GDP dating back to the start of last year. Now, the second barrel of the stimulus is, of course, the central banks, where policymakers there have continued to indicate that they plan to keep short-term interest rates pinned near zero for at least the next year or two, and continue to expand their balance sheets through assets purchase programs. In fact, if we look since last February, the major central banks, led by the US Central Bank, have gobbled up more than 10 trillion of bonds in their asset purchase programs, with their combined balance sheet rising from 20 trillion to more than 30 trillion currently over the past 12 months. So collectively, what we have here is a double-barreled stimulus that's going to significantly alleviate downside risks to the economic outlook. And this enormous amount of stimulus is also going to supercharge the recovery over at least the next year or so. Now, on top of that stimulus, households everywhere around the world are very well equipped to propel the recovery further. Consumer confidence measures have been rebounding both in Canada and the US. And honestly, households are probably itching to spend the amount of excess savings that they've amassed over the past year or so. By RBC economic estimates, households in Canada, for example, have probably accumulated around 200 billion in excess savings. And to put that number into perspective for you, that's roughly 10% of the Canadian economy. So even if we assume very conservatively only half of this excess savings gets spent, that still amounts to 5% of the Canadian GDP. And households' excess savings have similarly piled up in the US as well, with the latest estimate sitting around 1.5 trillion, possibly as high as almost 2 trillion. And that equates to roughly 10% of the US GDP. So the takeaway here really is that excess household savings will provide substantial support to major economies, and in particular in North America. Now, I want to touch on bond yields briefly here. They've trended sideways since peaking in March, but they're still up considerably year to date. But the story here is fairly straightforward. Interest rates have been undergoing an adjustment process, long-term interest rates, that is. They've been going under an adjustment process reflecting a more positive economic outlook. In fact, if we look back in history, an increase of 100 basis points or 1% in long-term bond yields from recession lows is pretty average just before or after recession ends. And around 1.65%, the US 10-year Treasury bond yield is essentially 100 basis points higher than where it was last August when it bottomed around 0.5%. So, I mean, overall, we're not too concerned about rising interest rates, long-term interest rates, and equity markets have so far been able to absorb higher bond yields to this point, in large part because yields are still rising for the good reasons, which is improving economic fundamentals. And to highlight another reason why we're currently not worried about bond yields at these is that, you know, at these levels, they remain far from restrictive territory. For one, long-term bond yields are still considerably below nominal GDP growth, and real inflation-adjusted short-term interest rates, they're still negative. And the right chart here shows one of the more useful indicators for gauging economic pressure from higher interest rates. Specifically, what it shows is US cyclical spending as a percentage of the overall economy, with cyclical spending just being the sum of consumer spending on durable items, residential investment, and corporate investment. And these are essentially the spending categories that exhibit above average interest rate sensitivity. And on this front, the message is that despite the recent surge in long-term interest rates, there are currently no signs that interest rates have risen to a level that's hampering the economy. Now, with respect to corporate fundamentals, they're doing quite well. Similar to economies, corporate profits will rebound robustly this year. This chart shows forward 12-month earnings estimates for global equities, which have now fully retraced the sharp decline they suffered last year. And given our constructive outlook on the economy, our sense is that earnings estimates will continue to grind higher in coming quarters and therefore remain broadly supportive of equity markets. Now, shifting gears here to share some thoughts around longer-term equity market cycle data. While our view is that the macro environment will broadly remain favorable for the stock market, we think it's still sensible to kind of rein in return expectations after such a strong bounce from the bottom of last March. And the table on this slide summarizes how the S&P 500 and the TSX have historically performed after the S&P hits its trough levels in US recession-induced market sell-offs since World War II. So two observations to highlight for you here. First, very strong equity market gains in the first year of a recovery from a recession are normal. On average, the S&P 500 and the TSX have rallied 44% and 35% in the 12 months after reaching maximum losses in recession-induced equity bear markets. The second point, and this is more relevant to where we are in the cycle today, equity market gains in the second and third years of a recovery from recessions usually downshift to a more moderate pace because the initial reflexive bounce starts to flatten out. But still, if we look at most of these recoveries, they did carry fairly decent momentum into the subsequent years. And year to date, equity markets are basically following the same pattern. They are rising, but at a relatively more pedestrian pace compared to the previous 12 months. Now, moving to the economic cycle on this slide, I noted earlier that recessions get a lot of media and investor attention, but it's important here to remind ourselves that expansion is the normal state of the economy because they typically last much longer than recessions. Since 1945, the average duration of US expansions is almost 5.5 years, which is significantly longer than the average length of recessions of just over 11 months. Interestingly, but I'm certainly not predicting this for the current cycle, expansions appear to have lengthened in recent decades, with the last 4 US expansions lasting an average of over 8 years. Now, this economic cycle data we just went through is important to us because our view on the stock market is informed in no small part by assessing whether we are in expansion or heading towards a recession. And as long as the economy is expanding, then our view is that corporate profits are likely to be growing as well. And that ultimately provides fuel for equity markets to maintain an upward bias over time. So when we look back in history in this chart, almost every single equity bear market has been associated with US recessions, which are all the gray shaded areas. In other words, sharp declines in equities and US recessions tend to overlap each other. So stated differently, the best way to see an equity bear market coming and to take defensive actions in portfolios is to correctly anticipate the arrival of US economic downturns, which is obviously not easy to do, but there are some useful US recession risk indicators that we monitor closely to inform our views on this front. But if there's one common theme or cause, if you will, of US recessions, we would focus on one thing, and that's the central bank, because the vast majority of these US recessions you see on this slide highlighted in the gray areas here, they were direct result of monetary policy tightening where central banks are actively hiking interest rates. So with the US central bank not expected to hike interest rates until possibly late next year or possibly into 2023, we don't think monetary policy tightening and US recession will become a meaningful risk for a while longer. Now, moving on to the next set of long-term cycle data that I want to highlight for you. This slide here provides some perspective on corrections and volatility. Over the past 4 decades, the S&P 500 has suffered at least a 10% price correction in more than half of those years. In fact, the average intra-year peak to trough decline has been around 14% approximately. However, in 31 out of those 40 years, or more than 75% of the time, the S&P 500 actually went on to finish the year with positive returns. The data for the TSX, the Canadian market, isn't presented here, but it's pretty similar. Since 1980, the TSX has suffered at least a 10% price correction in 60% of those years, but finished 70% of those years with a positive return. So the message here is that at the end of the day, corrections, price volatility in equity markets are quite normal, but the resilience of equity markets can be certainly underappreciated over the long run. And staying on the theme of long-term cycle data, here's a chart that illustrates the bull and bear market cycles for the TSX Composite since 1956. For this particular exercise, we define bear markets as a peak to maximum loss decline exceeding 20%. So similar to the data we just went through on expansions and recessions, the message here is that bull markets last much longer than bear markets. For the TSX, if we exclude the current bull market cycle that began in March of last year, there have been 20 bull and bear market cycles over the last just over 6 decades. So this means on average, we should expect a bear market roughly once every, call it 6 to 7 years. And in terms of duration and intensity of these cycles, it's also clear that bull markets typically sustain much longer, with an average duration of just over 5 years, generating average total returns of 165%. But in contrast, bear markets, while of course always painful to live through, they've usually been relatively brief events with an average duration of roughly 10 months, generating average losses of 31% approximately. So, I mean, there's no debate that equity markets have already staged an incredible rebound over the past year from the bottom of last March. But as long as the current upbeat global economic outlook remains intact and isn't undermined by unforeseen negative shocks, the long-term history of market cycles tells us that there likely remains solid runway ahead for further gains in equity markets. Now, I want to touch on how to think about portfolio opportunities and equities in the current environment. We think if you look on the slide, the cyclicals bucket on the slide likely represent the most timely ideas, or at least the more timely thematic areas. As global growth reaccelerates, which it's doing right now, we would expect this dynamic to help foster more favorable conditions, including higher bond yields, higher commodity prices, and a softer US dollar for the relative performance trends of non-US equity markets, so Canada and overseas equity markets. The reason is because international equity markets outside of the US have much higher representation in cyclical sectors such as financials, industrials, and energy and materials. And this makes them more levered to the business cycle. And if we view this through the lens of duration, or otherwise known as interest rate sensitivity, these also happen to be the sectors that tend to perform relatively better during periods of rising interest rates because their earnings growth is more front-loaded. The income theme in the middle here should also remain relevant as well. Within this bucket, we would favor dividend growers with sustainable payouts and growth capacity to raise those dividends in excess of the inflation rate. With respect to fixed income securities, we would de-emphasize these for now until compensation for credit risk improves to more attractive levels, which they are not currently. And if our macro outlook of stronger growth and higher bond yields pans out, then the secular growth bucket here on the very left, this area of the equity market could be primed for a period of relative underperformance over the next little while. But we still think this is an area that most investors should have some exposure to in their portfolios because the rate and intensity at which technology is shaping and permeating our lives will only continue to strengthen. And a lot of companies in this bucket, quite frankly, have very resilient, highly profitable business models with ample growth runway ahead. And when you combine that with the permanent changes in consumer behavior towards things like e-commerce and digital payments, these are still the kind of companies that are very well positioned to deliver revenue and earnings growth well in excess of trend GDP growth over the long term. So overall, in the context of an equity portfolio, rather than a complete portfolio redesign, we think it's a lot more useful to think along the lines of finding a suitable balance between secular growth, income, and the cyclicals buckets. These themes respond differently to inflation and interest rates. So depending on one's objectives, time horizon, and risk tolerance, there are certainly adjustments that can be made in a portfolio to make sure that one's portfolio is not excessively exposed to any one of these categories. So I think I've rambled on long enough here. So here are some parting thoughts I'll leave with you here today. On the pandemic front, the light at the end of the tunnel is getting brighter, certainly, even though a lot of us in Canada, and myself included, are still waiting for our vaccines. Global growth should remain quite strong for at least the next 12 months as economies reopen, but also supported by a lot of government spending and central banks keeping interest rates low, as well as consumers with a lot of savings in their bank accounts and are ready to spend those savings. And this constructive outlook drives our view to overweight equities in multi-asset portfolios. And as long as we don't see a US recession on the horizon, then we're likely to maintain an equity-friendly bias in asset allocation overall. And lastly, on the risk front, I think there are two that stand out in the near term, and these include a significant increase in long-term bond yields and sustained inflation surprises on the upside. So these are a couple of dynamics that we'll be watching closely over the coming quarters to gauge whether or not they're going to become a meaningful risk to equity markets. So I'll wrap up my comments there. With that, I think we do have some time for Q&A.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph. Actually, I'm hoping that you'll be able to stay on a little bit for some questions and answers. We do have a one that I need to close, but hoping that you can stay on and we can continue with some questions after. Are you okay with that, Joseph?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Baz?
President Debbie, thank you. Joseph, I want to thank you for that that whirlwind but nicely detailed overview of the equity markets and the careful predictions of the future. I find it really intriguing to learn about that, and I appreciate the detail with which you presented it. Thanks for coming today and enlightening us a little bit about what the future may hold for us. Thank you very much on behalf of the club.
No problem, my pleasure.
Okay. Thank you, and I'm still asking you to hang on there, Joseph. President Deb's Stronger Together, Together Inspired moment. And we got the thank you. Yeah, I was gonna jump to that after we did the Q&A. Thanks, sorry about that, Jeff. Little change of direction. So we have President Deb, Stronger Together, Together Inspired Moment. This week is World Immunization Week. Vaccines bring us closer and will bring us closer again. So as they say, the hashtag vaccines work to bring us closer is the theme this week. The video that we started at the beginning of the meeting was a little bit on vaccines and some fun, but hopefully everybody thinks about it, gets out, checks out, and make sure that they consider getting the vaccine at least. So together we can achieve a healthier world for all. I'm gonna hit the bell because it is 1:30 right on. And then I've got Ernie that covered, but we will jump back to you, Joseph, for some questions. So do we have some questions there? Just checking the chats.
And fire off one there for you, Joseph. A topic not talked a lot about by banks at the moment, cryptos. They're quite popular, they're volatile. What's your take on cryptos from a banker's perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll tell you RBC's stance on it. At the current juncture, RBC's stance is that they remain speculative investments rather than something that investors should have as part of their core portfolios. And I would generally agree with that particular view. If we think about cryptocurrencies and the kind of functions they can serve, and if we view them through the lens of quote unquote money, there are three basic functions of money. The first is a medium of exchange. The second is a store of value. And the third function of money is a unit of account. And on at least two of these three basic functions, cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, fails. Certainly, Bitcoin has been improving as a medium of exchange. And by that, I mean the ability to swap fiat currency like the Canadian dollar or the US dollar into Bitcoin and back to Canadian and US dollar. That's now a relatively fairly easy thing to do. You can do that on a lot of cryptocurrency exchanges. And more importantly, there are slightly more merchants that are expecting Bitcoin as a form of payment, but this doesn't really, but the percentage of that is still very small. So Bitcoin remains very limited in its ability to function as a medium of exchange from a currency perspective, from a money perspective. And to give you a sense of that, Bitcoin is very hard to settle, whereas something like a Visa network can handle 236 million of transactions per hour. Bitcoin's network can only handle about 14,000 transactions per hour. The kind of scale you need for Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies to become a medium of exchange is still quite a long runway ahead, if it actually gets there at all. Now, as a store of a value, I would argue that Bitcoin is not a store of a value. A lot of people like to call cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin a store of value. It's not, at least not today. A store of value implies that you have reasonable expectation of what that value will be. Well, that value will be the same or near the same at some point down the road. Bitcoin is way too volatile to be considered a store of value. That could change eventually if it gets more stable and it gains widespread acceptance. But today, it's still more of a speculative vehicle than anything else. I mean, anything priced in Bitcoin would have to be adjusted in terms of its price every single day. And lastly, I think there is a risk that's perhaps a little bit underappreciated right now, and that's government regulations. I mean, the risk is that the government could come in and say, we're going to ban outright cryptocurrencies in the way we do transactions today. I'm not predicting that, but certainly that's a risk that I think a lot of people would need to keep in mind if they're looking to allocate some of their capital towards cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin in particular. So those are some very high level thoughts. Still very much a speculative vehicle in today at the current juncture. That could change in the future, but that's kind of my take on it based on what we know about it today.
Oh, thank you. More questions? We have a handful of people that are hanging on. Just waiting to hear what else you have to say.
President Deb, I've got a question. It's Jonathan. Hey, Joseph. I listened to Eric LaSalle's GAM call last week as well, and he was talking a little bit about currency exchange. And I'm just curious to know your thoughts on the direction of the Canada-US dollar, considering all the stimulus that's being injected on both sides of the border, but particularly just the sheer volume and magnitude of what the US is pumping in right now, and where you see the US-Canadian dollar going.
Well, currencies are notoriously difficult to forecast, but if I was forced to make a view on that, my view is that the Canadian dollar is likely to strengthen over the next 6 to 12 months. In fact, we've already seen it strengthen quite a fair bit year to date. I think there are 3 reasons why the Canadian dollar is likely to have a strengthening bias over the next 12 months. The first one is that the US Central Bank is going to, well, currently is lagging the Bank of Canada, the Canadian Central Bank, in normalizing monetary policy. Last week's Bank of Canada meeting started the process of tapering asset purchases in Canada, whereas in the US, the US Central Bank has indicated they will continue to buy the same amount of bonds in their asset purchase programs, and they're likely to fall behind the rate hike cycle compared to the Canadian Central Bank. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that as the global economy reaccelerates over the coming quarters, that should support higher, if not at least resilient commodity prices, and in particular the price of oil. And the Canadian dollar at various points in times is going to be fairly correlated, highly correlated to the price of crude oil. And as long as there's an upward bias there, or at least resilient prices, that should be a tailwind to the Canadian dollar as well. And the third reason is that the Canadian, in Canada, we've fallen behind the US in terms of our vaccination campaign. Now we're starting to catch up. There's still a long way to go, but as we catch up in terms of vaccination campaign, and as that allows for provincial economies to broadly reopen, and Ontario in particular, given its importance to the Canadian economy, that should allow the Canadian economy to, in terms of growth, to catch up to the US a little bit as well. So I think the combination of those 3 dynamics should provide a strengthening bias for the Canadian dollar over the next 12 months or so.
Thanks, Joseph. I agree with you. Just a follow-up question to that. So if we expect that the Canadian dollar is likely to strengthen in value, GDP growth is expected to be about the same on both sides of the border, maybe a little bit stronger in the US, but earnings growth on the TSX is expected to grow at a more rapid rate than the US. Would you suggest that your clients lean a little bit more towards Canada right now?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's a pretty strong home bias amongst Canadian investors in their portfolios already. So, I mean, the answer to that question depends on how much of your equity portfolio is already invested in Canada, and kind of what your long-term target is for Canadian equities in the portfolio. But if we ignore those considerations, which are very important for individual investors' circumstances, yes, that's what we've been doing in our multi-asset portfolios. We've added equity exposure 4 times since last September, and the last 2 times we have done so through non-US markets, specifically the Canadian market and the international market. So yes, that's something we've been doing, leaning a bit more into Canada because it's got a lot more cyclicality. Financials is over 30% of the TSX. You have a much higher weight in materials and the energy sectors, and that's it's those 3 sectors, the higher weight in those 3 sectors, that's driving the stronger, relatively stronger earnings growth for the TSX compared to Canada.
I know Paul has offered to accept any questions and that we may have following the meeting and get them off to you. So I hope that you're okay with that, because we kind of pushed him on that.
Yeah, of course, no
Yes,
problem
no,
at all.
not-
My
not-
pleasure.
Now, I'm not sure if you can see our screen, but I am holding up a certificate here. So it's a thank you for coming and speaking with us today. Rotary, we are just very close to ending polio worldwide. So 10 polio vaccinations have been made in your name in honor of you coming and talking with us. And we've also made a contribution towards the COVID-19 fight. Rotary is involved there with our network around the world. So we've made a contribution on your behalf towards that. So thank you so much for coming and joining with us, and for sticking around a little bit longer to answer questions.
No worries, my pleasure, and thank you for that.